So today our topic is how to minimize risk when taking the leap into business ownership. Um, I think Diane said this earlier as well, but it does tend to be one of the more popular ones. Um, Very quickly about me, just so that you know who is giving you advice. Um, I have a background very similar to most small business owners. I started out with a whole different career. I spent 25 years in the automobile industry. I was in charge of sales and marketing for all of the European countries for Volvo, the car company. Came back about 27 years ago and opened up two Huntington Learning Centers. And I ran those for 24 years. And while I owned those 13 years ago, I became a friend net franchise consultant. And I did that because I saw so many people come into the world of small business ownership, myself included, and did really, really well and a better life and better financial and more control. And I also saw people who didn't do so well. And FranNet gave me the opportunity to pursue my interest in helping people safely get into business ownership. So that all fits together with minimizing risk. Very quickly, FranNet is a national franchise consult. We're a franchise that helps people find a franchise. We are the oldest firm. We've been doing this for 38 years, and we are the only franchise consulting group that is partners with both the SBA, SCORE, and the SBDC. So hopefully that gives me a little bit of credibility. And now we can start talking about why you're here. So you want to own your own business. You are not alone. Business ownership has been on the rise for as long as I can think. And just in 2024, we had almost 35 million small businesses in the United States. We added in 2024, we added a little over 5 million. So you can see you're not alone in thinking that business ownership might be a good path. This data is, research data that's around, but it's been my experience when I'm working with my own clients that the data really holds up about why people want to own their own business. I think people who aren't thinking about it maybe assume that the interest is in making more money. And of course, you want to make money. You wouldn't be in business if you didn't want to make money. But then the research says, and I find with my own clients, that the real reason is to get control of your life. Make a reasonable income, be able to take care of your family and yourself financially. But really, it's a question of getting control, whether that's getting control of your time, getting control of your schedule, getting safety and not being worried about losing your job. It's really more about control than anything else. So that's, very briefly introduction to, is what goes on in the world of business ownership. But there's another component and another statistic that you need to be aware of, and that is from the SBA, the Small Business Administration. And it tells us, and this number has been consistent for, oh gosh, we'll say forever. Approximately 50% of small businesses will fail after 5 years. So if you're concerned about risk, you have good reason to be. It is not, while business ownership is something that I strongly believe in, I think you can have a much better life. You need to be careful. You need to do it right. You need to be thoughtful about it because there is a pretty high failure rate. So that's what the SBA tells us. What else do they tell us? Well, in terms of why do businesses fail, the big reason, and I think this may be a symptom as much as a reason, and it has to do with poor capitalization, with running out of money before you become profitable. So it's really a time and money issue. The second biggest reason is the person who started the business up misread the market. There wasn't a demand for that service, or not a big enough demand, or there was no demand for the way they were coming to the market. No competitive advantage, no differentiator. So in one form or another, going into a business, bringing a business into the community that just wasn't viable. And then the last one, and this one I think may surprise people, is not having the right team. So the first piece of advice I'm going to give you today is, if you're going to go into business for yourself, don't go alone. Have a team of people to help you. Have an accountant. Have an attorney. Have a good banker. Take advantage of the SBDC resources and work with SBDC counselors who are going to be there to help you for free. Don't be shy about asking for help. Running a business is not an easy thing. It's not a simple thing. You can do it, so don't take me saying that as a caution against doing it, not at all. But reach out, get help. Don't try to be an expert in everything. So lawyers, accountants, bankers, financial advisors of all kinds and sorts, and SBDC, important. So what we are going to try to talk about today is how you can minimize that issue of time and capital investment, the number one cause for the failure, running out of money before you become profitable. How you can reduce the risk for yourself and for your family. How your own personal strengths and weaknesses are going to play. A little bit about business plan, the importance of a comprehensive business plan, and a little bit about the components of that plan. And maybe elaborating on what I was just talking about in terms of not going on your own, getting some additional support and help and expertise. So that's what we're going to try to cover. I want to start out by just briefly talking about the three primary ways that people enter the world of small business ownership. There are some smaller variations on these themes, but most people, if they're going to own their own business, they're going to do one of three things. They're going to start from scratch, they're going to buy somebody else's business, or they're going to buy a franchise. And each one of those has tremendous advantages, and each one of them has some things that you need to be careful about. So I thought looking at those three categories would be a good place for us to start. And excuse me, the most common one is to start from scratch. This is what most people do when they start from business. I would hazard to guess that the majority of you are anticipating that you're going to start a business on your own, and you're not alone in that. So what are the advantages of doing that? The biggest advantage is total control. You get to make all the decisions. You decide what business you're going to be in, how you're going to bring that business to market, how you're going to manage it, who you're going to hire, how you're going to market. Everything that gets decided, you get to decide. So it gives you that total control. You make all the decisions about where you're going to invest and where you're going to save money. Not a small thing. You keep all the profits. So when the business makes money, all the money is your money. This is also probably, well, no, not probably. If you had two comparable businesses and one person started it up from scratch and another one used one of those other categories, this is going to be the least expensive way to start your business. Therefore, if you're successful, it's probably going to give you the biggest return on your investment. So all of that is very positive. There are some disadvantages here, and they are, frankly, quite significant. The first one is that you don't know what you don't know. You may be an expert widget maker, but what do you know about marketing? What do you know about buying equipment to manufacture those widgets? What do you know about leasing a facility? What do you know about permitting and HR? And I said earlier that I thought people ran out of cash for that was a symptom and not the problem. I think this is the problem. I think while you're trying to figure out all of these things that you don't know, you're not making money because you're working on building up the business systems. Um, you've got to create your own systems. You're not making money while you're doing that. You run out of the money before you expected to, and that's why the business fails. I think that's your biggest downside on this option. And when you're doing that, there's no easy way to get help. You're going to have to hire the help along the lines of what I was saying earlier. So you're very likely to be slow to profitability and high failure rate. This is the highest failure rate. And because of that, banks are very hesitant to lend money for a business that's starting up from scratch. So good thing, total control, potentially the biggest return on investment. Downside, you don't know what you don't know. And it can be a slow road to becoming profitable, which causes failures and hard funding. So I hope I gave you a balanced view on that. Second option is by far the safest. Again, two comparable businesses, same business, same industry, same marketplace. This is probably going to be your most expensive option, but it is the safest option because there is cash flow. It's making money the day that you take it over. At least if you look at the historical results, tax returns, profit and loss statements, balance sheets, all the financial records, you can see how successful this business is today. And assuming that you buy a profitable business, you're going to be making money right away. You're going to have an existing base of customers. You're going to be, you're going to have some market recognition, brand recognition in your market. You're going to have employees in place. You don't have to find and train employees. The things that you don't know, you will probably build into your purchase contract a certain amount of training and support from the seller to help you get started running that business. And he or she's already put all the processes in place, and he or she is going to train you how to use them. So for all of those reasons, it's the safest option. And if you're credit worthy, a bank is going to be happy to fund this business. Downside, as I've already touched on, think to yourself, if you started a business and you invested X dollars and you built it up and it became successful and now you want to retire, or for whatever reason you want to get out of the business, you want equity growth. You want more money to sell the business to somebody else than you originally invested in. It's perfectly reasonable. It's the way things work. Well, any business you buy, if it's a profitable business, the owner is going to expect that. And that's going to drive the cost for getting into business this way up, which is going to create debt service for you because probably you're going to have to go to the bank to get the money to buy this business. And that debt service is now going to make that business a little less profitable. There's also some other issues. You want to make sure that you have a proper financial analysis done, bring in an accountant to make sure that the records are accurate and properly reflect the business. Why is the business being sold? If it's a hardware store, maybe you don't know that Home Depot is coming to town. So there are some flip sides on some of the positives, but by and large, your safest option, unfortunately, also your most expensive option. All right, so that's your second bucket. And then the third bucket is to buy a franchise. Franchise has pros and cons as well. I think the easiest way to describe a franchise is it's a hybrid between the other two options. You are starting from scratch. It doesn't exist where you're anticipating starting, but it does exist in other places around the country. So it is an existing business, just not on your street corner. Probably the biggest advantage of a franchise system is that they have figured out how to run this business. They've got it working for people all over the country. There's 100 to 200 to 1,000 people who are in this business, running it, using the franchisor systems. So we know that it works. And the franchisor is going to train you on how to use that system. They're going to provide ongoing support. They're going to provide marketing. They're going to, all those things that you don't know, the franchisor is going to teach you. So some people would consider the phrase, you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself, as a real advantage. Because you've got somebody there to help you all the way from the day that you open it until the day that you decide to sell. Downside on this is that you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. So again, this phrase can be used as a positive for some people and a negative for others. If you want to be creative, if you want to develop all of the routines yourself, if you're somebody who always is looking for that better way to do something, you may not want to be in a franchise system, because they are going to limit the things that you can do. You're only going to be able to sell the products and services that they allow you to service. You're only going to be able to do it in the market where they allow you to do it, at least in most franchises. You are going to have to buy that system, buy all that knowledge that the franchisor is going to give you. So there is a franchise fee up front, and then that really just covers the franchisor's cost of getting you started. Where they make their money is they take a percentage of your gross in royalty payments. So in the case of a franchise, the upside is it is a safe option. It's a hybrid between the other two. They're going to take care of the things that you don't know how to do. Very attractive to lenders. Downside, you are restricted into what you can do. So again, I would close up franchising as you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. Some people that's positive, some people that's negative. So I think if you start a business, you're going to wind up in one of those three buckets. So we have not gotten any questions, and I'm going to pause every now and again to remind you that I'm hoping to get some. So please do those, add those. So let's talk about more generally, what are some of the things that you can do to minimize risk? I'm going to cover 10 items, and I think they are things that you want to be dealing with in the due diligence process. I've been in the small business ownership world for 27 years now. What I'm absolutely convinced of, I've seen people do well and I've seen people fail, and I'm absolutely convinced that the number one reason, or the number one reason thing to do to keep yourself from failing is comprehensive due diligence. Take your time. Just don't go on a whim. You've got all of a sudden one night you wake up with a great idea and you decide to turn it into a business. Do due diligence on that idea. Take your time. Think it through. Plan it out. Make sure that you know what you're doing. That's where success comes from. So how do you go about doing that? First thing, and ideally you would do this even before you thought about the business that you wanted to get into. And that is to create a list of the must-haves. What does this business have to do? You know, you're not looking for a job where you've got to do something for the company, where the only way that you're going to get that job is if you can demonstrate what you're going to do for them. I would suggest, as an opening consideration, is that you should be looking at what the business is going to do for you. So if you're going to start a business, what are some of the must-haves? I'm going to give you some examples of things that I hear people talk about. Work-life balance has to improve. If I want to be a chaperone on a trip to the zoo with my kids, I want to do it. If I want to take a 4-day weekend, I want to be able to do that. If I want to take every Wednesday morning off to play golf, I want to do that. And the business has got to give me that kind of flexibility. Maybe I'm somebody that's looking for real big growth. Maybe I'm not looking to be a small business forever. Maybe I want to really grow large. If that's important, there are going to be some considerations. So you need to know how big you want to be as you're going in. Maybe the business needs to allow you to keep your current job to protect you from that startup period when, frankly, you're not going to be making much money, if any money at all. Maybe you want to start a business where you can keep your job and do this kind of as a sideline. Um, Maybe you want to see this as an exit strategy from your job. Maybe you're looking for an early retirement or an active retirement, or you just want to ease out of your corporate job. So you need to, your business planning needs to develop that exit strategy. How do you ease out of one and into the other? Um, Maybe you're in a situation where your cash flow and your personal expenses require that you have a salary from the start. If you go, I usually tell people, and this varies, so this isn't true in all cases, but I usually tell people as a starting point, assume if you're going to start a business, assume that you're not going to make any money for the first year, no money at all. And really, probably in the second year, you're not going to make a lot of money. How are you going to survive? How are you going to keep a roof over your head and food on the table? If you can't, if you don't have that capability and you need a salary from the startup, you need to put that into your planning. That's not going to be an easy thing to do. Um, Maybe on your list of must-haves is something that addresses your why. And for me, this is the most important thing. Why do you want to be in the business that you want to be in? I hear people talk to me about that issue, or I said earlier about work-life balance. Maybe that's why I want to have my own business. Maybe I want to pursue my hobby and or passion that I have. Maybe I want to give back to my community. Maybe I want to add value to other people's lives. Maybe I want to have an active retirement and some supplemental retirement income. But why? What's your why? Why? What's your motivation to own your own business? Be very clear about that. Um, um, Another issue of what you must have if you have family, if you have a spouse, if you have people who are depending on you, um, my strong advice to you is to bring those folks in and get them on board early on, or don't do this. If you don't have family support, no matter how successful you're going to be in the long term, during that startup phase, there's going to be some sleepless nights. There's going to be some stress. What you don't want is coming home at night and having somebody say, "Well, I told you so. I warned you that this was going to happen." You need your family to be in support of you. So get that commitment up front. Um, and you need to be thinking about what's your income goal. What can you deal with in the first year? What about the second year? When are you going to need to get back to a place where you can replace your current salary? And what's your longer term goal? Um, that's an important target. And finally, in terms of must-haves, what's your budget and how are you going to come up with those funds? What's the maximum budget that you can put together? There are other things that may be absolutely mandatory for you, but start with a list of must-haves and give it a lot of thought. When you've got that, you can maybe start thinking about the second thing that you need to do. And that is, at this point, you probably have got some idea about the industry that you want to be in. You're going to want to start building a business model that considers a lot of different things. And I'm not going to go through everything that's on this list, but you get the idea. What kind of customer do you want to have? Do you want to be B2B, business to business, or business to consumer? What kind of employee do you want to have? Do you want white collar, professional, blue collar, no collar? What kind of employees are you going to have? Do you want to have one location, or are you that person I talked about before who wants big growth and you want to turn this into a regional or a national company? How big is the business going to be? Do you want to get into something that's new and exciting and cutting edge, or do you want to be a little bit more conservative and stay in an industry that's proven and time tested? A lot of different criteria that goes into your business model, and you need to flesh all of that out and understand what are all of the things that are going to make up a happy business for you. So that's the second of the 10 things. And I'm still not seeing any questions, so I must be doing a fantastic job here. What is number 3? This, I think, is another significant reason for failing. A lot of times people will get into a business because they love what the business does. They love the industry. They love the service it provides. They love the product it sells. And they never think about what the owner's job is going to be. The thing that a lot of people, bankers in particular, will laugh about is everybody wants to open a restaurant or a bar because it seems like, every time you go into a restaurant, a bar, oh, what a great experience it is. And that's how you perceive the business. Except that that's not what the owner does. The owner is working long hours, not always with the best employees in the world, often doing work that's not very pleasant. And separating what the business does and the experience that you have as a customer from what the owner does is crucially important. And as you're doing that, you need to be thinking about what are the skills that are required from the owner, and do I have those skills? Am I going to enjoy, am I not only capable of doing the owner's job, but am I going to get up every morning and look forward to getting out of bed and going to work? And when you look back at those criteria that we were talking about a minute ago, is your role going to fit into that business model? I think we have a question.
Yes, thank you, Richard. Just curious if an MLM is the same or different from a franchise. If they are different, can you elaborate how they're different? And she just heard that some people say that an MLM is pretty much the same as a franchise. And
I don't know what an MLM is.
Jackie, do you want to elaborate a little bit? Because is that it, if I'm correct, are you talking about the
Oh, a multi-layer.
multi-level?
Oh, yeah. No,
Yeah, multi-level marketing.
No, that is not the same as a franchise. That is more like what I would call a dealer. That is a fourth category of business ownership, where you sell a product on behalf of a company, and you are a dealer. The company, the parent company, makes their money selling you the product, and then you make money marking it up. So you buy things at wholesale, you sell it for retail. That's a very simplistic description. And multi-layer marketing, what the multi part of that is, there's a manufacturer, and then there's a distributor below them, and then there's another distributor below them, and then there's you. There may be multiple layers of sellers in there, and each one is getting a small piece of the pie, and the pieces of the pie get increasingly small as you move along. So that is the Avon. I don't know if Avon is still around, but Avon Cosmetics and Tupperware and these kinds of things where you have a party, and Mary Kay. Mary Kay is an MLM. Where you start out and then you find other people to sell under you, and on and on. So that's definitely not a franchise. It's more like a dealer model.
Thank you.
All right. So back to the business owner versus the business. I think it's important for you as you're looking at this and not everybody will agree with this, and it's not true in all cases, but I think what the business does is much less important than what the owner does. The business should give you, as the owner, the outcomes that you're looking for, the topics that we discussed in the very first slide. If it's not going to, if it gives you those things, why do you care what the business does? The business should be, in my view, not applicable to everybody, but in my view, the business should give you the life that you want, and pick an industry that'll give you that. And again, that's the issue of separating what the owner does from what the business does. The bottom line is you should be in a place where you can't wait to go to work every day. All right. Let us move to number 4. Consider market growth potential and safety. What's the market for the business that you're looking at? Is there a natural demand for this product? Or is this going to be something that you're going to have to convince people, maybe it's a cutting edge product, something that has just been invented, or a service that nobody really is widely familiar with. There's no natural demand for that. So how are you going to market it? How are you going to get that into the marketplace? And are you confident that it has the growth potential that you want? Related to that is, do you, as you look at your business, do you feel that you're going to have the ability to adjust to market changes? Some industries, if you go into an IT industry, it's constantly changing. Every year there's something new they have to deal with. Are you going to be able to keep up with not only running your business day to day, taking care of your customers day to day, but also keeping track of what's going on in the market and adapting to the marketplace? That may lead you to decide whether or not you want to be in a business that is subject to change, or something that's maybe a little less exciting, maybe a little bit boring, but a lot more stable. Additionally, some businesses are less sensitive to economic turmoil, to recession. Hopefully we're not going to see another pandemic. Likelihood is we will at some point, but we know we're going to see a recession. How much do you want to protect yourself and your family against a recession? There are some businesses where you can, essential service businesses, both residential and commercial. Businesses where a simple example would be a damage restoration company. It doesn't matter what the economy is. If somebody's basement floods or their roof leaks, the damage has got to be taken care of. Those are going to be a business that's going to be safe in a recession. Businesses that serve demographic shifts, where the market is naturally getting bigger. For a long time, and for a long time to come, baby boomers are driving industries and protecting against turmoil. The other kinds of things that you see happen is, regardless of the economy, and there may be some effect, but people spend money on their kids, even in a bad economy. They may spend a little less, but they're not going to stop spending altogether. Interestingly enough, the same thing can be said about pets. So people always spend money on their pets and their kids. Maybe they see them interchangeably. Health and wellness. People will always spend money on health and wellness, largely because they don't have an option. And kind of going off on a tangent, something you might not assume to be true is outsourced business services. If the economy goes into a bad place, small business owners don't give up easily. So sales training groups do well in a bad economy. Expense control groups, people who come in and help you get the expenses down in your business, they do well in a bad economy. So there are a variety of kinds of businesses that do okay in a recession. You may want to be thinking about that. Not everybody needs to, but if you're afraid of that kind of thing, you'll sleep better if you're in the right industry. Assess your skills. this is going to be particularly important if you're starting something from scratch. Um, if you're starting a business from scratch and you go to a bank to help you get funding for your business, the bank is going to want to see clearly in your resume that you have the knowledge, the experience, the skills that are going to be necessary for you to minimize that learning curve that I talked about before. You don't know what you don't know. Um, it's important for the bank, and you're not going to get funding without it. But it should be important for you. Um, and if you find that you don't have all the required skills, then my strong suggestion to you is hold off on opening the doors of your business until you've either gotten the training or you figured out some strategy to offset the things that you don't know. Whether that, maybe you're gonna, if you don't know much about marketing, can you find a marketing company that you can work with even at the early stages of your business when you're not making a lot of money, a marketing company to help you with that aspect of the business or whatever it is that you are lacking. So get an inventory of what you know and what you don't know and figure out how it's going to impact your business and what you're going to do to protect yourself. You may find interesting, and this also comes back to the earlier point about, are you going to get up every day and enjoy the business? Your personality matters. Your value system matters. Your leadership style, if you're going to have employees, your leadership style matters. If you're not an outgoing person, who's going to sell? Because you need that kind of personality to be a good salesperson. If you're going to have to get out into the community and do some networking to create awareness for your business, are you the kind of person who can walk into a room full of people and make some new contacts? So your personality makes a difference. If you've done over time, if you've done a Myers-Briggs or a DISC or one of the many kinds of surveys like that, that can be a good place for you to start brainstorming about that. If you haven't, I think this is so important that I'll make you an offer. It comes almost without any kind of interference from me. If you want to do a personality profile that looks at personality in the context of business ownership, you can go to that website and it will give you the opportunity to take a personality profile that we've developed at FranNet. Because with all my clients, I look at their personality style and I match it up to franchises where I know that personality style works. If you do this, I promise I will minimize the amount of marketing that you get. You are going to get some emails from FranNet saying, "Oh, would you like to learn more about franchising?" You can ignore all of that. What you'll get is a very comprehensive report about your personality in the context of business ownership. So Diane is going to send you this presentation. That link will be in the presentation. So hopefully that helps. All right, no new questions, please ask them. Number 6, you're again going back to banks. Banks, you can probably tell already, banks are going to play a crucial role in your business planning. Banks are going to want to see a business plan. The main thing they want to see in your business plan are detailed financial projections. And so that's the next thing that we're going to talk about. You have to have detailed financial projections. And if you don't have a finance background, if you don't have an accounting background, if you aren't familiar with business financing, financial reporting, I would suggest you work with an accountant. But even before you worry about the business, you're definitely going to want to look at your personal budget. If you have to, how much can you tighten your belt? How much can you cut your expenses at home to keep a roof over your head, food on the table, not have your family revolt on you, but to get your own personal expenses down. Again, you're probably not going to make much money at all in the first year, and it takes a while to ramp up profitability. So you do need to know that you can manage your personal expenses. Um, the second thing is, what is it going to cost to start the business? This can be difficult because the first thing you need to know is, what are you going to have to buy? What are you going to have to spend money on? And then try to get a good assessment on what the cost for doing those things and buying those things is going to be. But you do need to spend the time to come up with your budget for that. Again, a bank is going to want to see the answer to both of those questions. Both certainly for your business, you're going to need to project your working capital. In other words, ignoring any income that you get, ignoring sales, what is it going to cost every month to keep the lights on in your business? How much are you going to pay for utilities? How much are you going to pay for rent? How much are you going to pay for insurance? What are you going to pay for employees? On and on and on and on. All of the things that you're going to need to spend money on. And what happens if on any given month you do not, no money comes in? Seasonal problems, economic problems, catastrophe, the building catches fire and you need to shut down for a little bit of time. How are you going to cover your expenses? So you do want access to working capital. You don't actually need to have the money sitting in the bank doing, getting whatever interest you get in a savings account, but you need to know that you can have access to working capital to cover you in case your business doesn't cover the expenses. I would recommend, I think most financial advisors would recommend not less than 6 months of operating capital, ideally 12. So if it costs $5,000 a month just to turn the lights on every month, pay the rent, whatever, then my suggestion would be is that you have access to $30,000, 6 months of operating capital, just in case. If you don't have that, this issue, working capital, and the ability to cover your personal expenses are, in my experience, the two primary criteria that a bank looks at. They'll call it liquidity. Do you have personal and business liquidity to keep things going in case you run short of cash? That's my experience is that's the number one consideration. Related to all of this is a projection on, how long is it going to be? How long can you go without that income, and how much you're going to need to cover it? We do with Diane. I do a session on how to fund your business. There are a lot of different ways that you can fund your business. Don't just go for the first one. Look at, even if you decide you're going to do SBA loan is the only option for you, talk to more than one bank or more than one SBA lender to make sure that you're getting the best possible deal, and understand that there are things other than SBA loans to fund your business with. What I would recommend against doing is using your personal cash to fund your business. It's very hard to accumulate cash. It's going to be very hard to replace it if you use it all. And if you don't have cash because you've invested it in the business and now you need more money, and you go to a bank and the bank says, well, how much cash do you have? Again, back up to these personal, covering your personal expenses and your working capital. How much cash do you have? The bank says, and you say, I have none because I spent it all. They're not going to lend you any money. So protect your cash. All of this should manifest itself in a income and expense projection, essentially a profit and loss projection. And I would suggest that you do a 3x3. three scenarios: a best case, a worst case, and what you think is going to happen. And for 3 years, year one, year two, year three. I think a bank is going to want to see that. At least they're going to want to see what you think is going to happen. But for your own planning, you need to be able to say, well, wouldn't it be great if I was making all that much money? And what happens if I only make this much money? And then this is what I think I'm going to make. You need to be prepared for all three scenarios. So this is one of the hardest things to do. You can hire an accountant to help you do this. You can also work, if you want to forestall that expense, at least for the time being, in the short term. SBDC mentors, SBDC counselors can be a tremendous help for you, to you in developing your financial projections. You can also find on the SBDC website a template for doing this kind of stuff. So that's number 6, and we have no questions. Come on, guys, ask me a question. Startup costs. Goes back to the one of the first slides that we talked about. What does the SBA tell us? The SBA tells us 50% of small businesses fail within the first 5 years, and they tell us it's because of poor capitalization. We underestimated the startup cost. So don't do that. Make sure that you have an accurate projection of what it's going to take to start the business up. I can't tell you what your business is going to cost. It's a very difficult thing to do. I try to give you some context here. It may have no application at all to what you're going to do, but just to give you some point of reference, this is data that I share with my clients as we start out to give them some realistic expectations. There are 3,600 franchise brands out there in 90 different industries. If I break them down into what does it cost to open the doors on the business, what I find is that 11% of those 3,600 brands are under $50,000 to get the doors open. Another 16% between 51 and 100,000. Another 28% between 100,000 and 250,000. So you can see that the level of an investment can range quite a bit. Now, one word of caution: when you start up a franchise, you have to buy into the system, which if you were starting from scratch, you wouldn't be doing that, right? You're going to have to try to figure all that stuff out on your own. Franchise charges you a franchise fee, and that adds to your cost. So your cost might be a little bit lower. But just to give you an idea about what some businesses cost to start. Okay. Number 8. I alluded to this earlier. There are a lot of different ways to fund your business. With Diane, I run a How to Fund Your Business session webinar. The most common thing that people do is they go to banks and they get an SBA loan. I will tell you candidly that it is very difficult to get an SBA loan for starting for something that you're starting from scratch. It has a high failure rate. Banks are very cautious about lending money out when they think they're not going to get it back. But this is the most common way that people start get the funding for their business. The one issue with that right now is the interest rates are still pretty high. I'm typically seeing 8.5%, 9%, and can be higher than that, can be lower too. But I'm typically seeing 9.5%. I'm sorry, 8.5%, 9% for SBA loans. Because of that, a lot of people are using home equity lines or doing a refi of their mortgage and using the equity in their house. I know that may scare you a little bit because you don't want to put your house at risk. If you take an SBA loan, they're going to want collateral, and that collateral is almost always going to be your house. So you're putting your house at risk anyway. And home equity line, maybe you're going to get for 6.5% as opposed to 9%. So you're saving 2.5% in interest rates. That may make it worth your while to look at using home equity to fund your business. Friends and relatives can be a means of help. Bringing in a partner, that can help. If you're buying somebody else's business, that's a very safe option. Very often, more often than not, I would say, the seller can be expected to hold some of the purchase price as a promissory note. So you get an SBA loan for half, and you pay the seller off for the other half over time. That's not an uncommon thing to have happen. Personal savings, we talked about. I think that's a bad idea. An idea that you probably have not thought about, not heard about, is using a rollover to fund your business. What I am not talking about, because it would be a terrible idea to take a distribution, take money out of your 401k, your IRAs, your 403b, whatever you have. Just taking a distribution would be a terrible idea, because you're going to lose somewhere in the neighborhood of 30% in taxes and penalties. So you don't want to do that. But there is an option that has been used a lot in the franchise world, but can be used anyplace, in which you set up a 401k plan for your own company. You roll money from your current 401k or IRAs into your company's plan. Your employees can participate in that. So it's just like the 401k you have at work, but it just happens to be managed through your corporation. Your corporation will have a plan administrator, just like your current employer does. And your plan administrator will let you invest in General Motors and Fidelity and whatever you want to invest in, including buying stock in your own company. Now your company is getting the rollover money. You're not getting the money. Your company is getting it. There's no taxes. There's no penalties. And you haven't used your cash. You've invested it. Instead of investing it in General Motors, you've invested it in your own company. So this is a way that you can eliminate debt service. If your business is successful, it probably will give you a better return than you're going to get in the stock market. So for a lot of people, this is an option. At the end of the slide, you'll have my contact information. Your accountant probably doesn't know about this. Your financial advisor may not know about it. It is in the IRS code. It is completely legal. People have been doing it for 40 years. It's just that many people don't know about it. If you want to learn more, let me know, and I'll put you in touch with companies that can help you set it up. You do need an expert. You need a plan administrator to set the whole thing up for you. So there's a lot of different ways that you can fund your business. The best option is the best one for you, because it's a very personal thing. And I would suggest that you explore options. Understanding earning potential. Important thing before you start funding and thinking about how expensive it's going to be to start your own business. This always surprises people, I think, when I point out to them that there's no automatic correlation between how much you invest, how much the business costs to start, and how much money you're going to make. It's a natural assumption that if I don't invest a lot, I'm not going to make a lot, but that's not true at all. If you're going to have a brick and mortar retail business, it's going to cost you a lot more to start up than a business that you operate from home. But that doesn't mean you're not going to make more money from the business that you start at home. So you don't have to borrow a lot to make a lot. Yes, Dane.
You'll be happy. We have 4 questions here for you.
Oh, I love 4 questions.
Yes, I know you do. Is the 401k funding option the same as going public? And what exactly does going public mean? Can you give a brief description, please? Thanks.
Yeah, going public means that you're going to go onto the New York Stock Exchange or some such place, and you're going to sell shares of your business to the public. And no, that's not the same thing at all. The shares of your company would have very little, very limited access to anybody except you and your employees to buy shares, and your employees will almost never do it. I would say, would never do it. They could do it, but it's not a big advantage. So no, it's not the same thing. No, I think there was a second part of that.
Well, no, no, you answered the question. Yeah, yeah, you answered that because you explained it. What if you want to create a business with plans to sell to a bigger company?
Uh, Great. You can do that, but you need to understand the marketplace. You need to understand that industry to, have some reason to believe that there's going to be somebody who's going to come along and swoop you up. So, I mean, not every business is going to be attractive, but if you understand where the economy is going, and you create a business that you think is going to get bought up, great.
Okay, thank you. How soon should a startup have a 401k and who would benefit from it?
If you're going to do what, if you're going to use it for funding your business, which I just described, which is what I was describing, you want to do that. You're going to use that rollover money to start your business, so you do it before the business is started.
Okay,
And
can only
and again, you would benefit from it because now you don't need to borrow the money from an SBA loan. You're going to benefit from it because you're going to get a return on your investment from the equity growth. If your employees invested in it, then they would also benefit just like they would if they bought General Motors. But I can assure you that the likelihood of your employees buying shares of your business is almost nil.
Okay, thank you. Can only a C corporation have a 401k? What about nonprofit?
You can do, a nonprofit can do it. Meh, I'm not sure about the nonprofit answer, but you do have to be a C corp. So you've obviously heard about this before. You do have to be a C corp, and the money that you want to roll over cannot be with your current employer, only because your current employer's plan won't let you roll it over. But yes, you do have to be a C corp. Thank you for that flurry of questions. Keep them coming. Second thing, this is a big issue in the franchise world, but it really applies to everybody. Remember that when you sell $100 worth of products or services to a consumer, that money doesn't come into your pocket. A lot of times people will go into a business focusing on, oh my gosh, look what the sales in that business are going to be. You need to be focused on the net income from the business, not the gross revenue. So I mention this because sometimes people get caught up in that. What you care about is how much do you take home. A business that has low fixed expenses, low operating expenses, is a big help in mitigating risk. So if you can have part-time employees who are only getting paid when they're working, if your business slows down and they work less, your salary, your cost for wages goes down. If you can operate from home and you don't have to pay a landlord rent, whatever you can do to keep your operating expenses low, that's going to protect you in a bad market. So that is really a crucial piece to your financial planning, and really part of choosing what business you want to be in. Try to find something that would make you happy and has low fixed expenses, which really goes back to the first point on this slide, which is a business that has a high investment often has very high fixed expenses and can wind up with very low net margins. as I said a couple of times now, one of the biggest challenges, one of the biggest threats that you're going to have is that you're not going to make money for some period of time. Maybe you want to consider keeping your job and working this business on the side and hiring a manager to run the business day to day, and to get the business started, include that manager's wages in your startup cost. And that allows you to keep your job, keep whatever benefits you get from your job, and gives you a little bit of safety as you're trying to get the business up and running. And then when it's profitable, then quit your job. But keep that job for the time being. You're going to be working harder if you do that, but it may be a safer route. And then finally, in terms of earning potential, you do want to think about your exit strategy going in. Different businesses have different capability for what happens when you decide you don't want to work full time anymore. Some businesses you can continue, you can back out of, hire a general manager, maybe a trusted employee, let them run the company for you, and back out of full-time operations. Keeps you busy, keeps you with an income. Some businesses will do that, some businesses won't. Some businesses have equity growth. You're going to build it up, you're going to make it wildly successful. You're going to have a great customer base, a loyal customer following, and loyal employees. And somebody's going to just love to buy your business for so much more than you originally invested. That happens. That's a real option, but doesn't work for every business. Not every business builds equity. If that's your plan, make sure that your business is going to be in an industry in which equity growth happens. So it may not seem logical to be thinking about your exit when you're thinking about starting, but that's the time. And then finally, number 10, and it really comes back to an earlier point about ask for help. You can't possibly know everything. So if you're going to start from scratch, work with SBDC counselors, SCORE counselors, the economic development offices in your county may have expertise. There is free advice available to you. So if you're looking to a startup, work with the SBDC counselors. If you're looking to buy an existing business, there are business brokers out there who assist sellers, like kind of like a real estate agent, instead of selling a house, they're trying to sell a business. You can also look at the website Biz Buy Sell, which I run a course for Diane on buying and selling a business. And so I look at the count of businesses in Maryland that are for sale at any given time. It's always over 600 businesses for sale in Maryland at any given time. So you might find a business that's right for you on Biz Buy Sell. You definitely, whatever form of business ownership you decide to pursue, you're definitely going to want to have an accountant, an attorney. Why not take advantage of SBDC and SCORE counselors? Why not take advantage of local economic development offices? Local economic development folks may be able to, I didn't put that up as a funding option, but there is some, not a lot, but there is some economic development monies available for borrowing to start up businesses. So you may find something there as well. If you're looking to buy a franchise, I would like to be your resource. There are other franchise consultants out there. I've had the great pleasure of doing some training for SBDC counselors, so that they and SCORE counselors have had some training and understand the basics of franchising, and they could help you. However you're going to do your business, make sure that one of the sources of support you get is going to be helping you develop a comprehensive business plan, a plan that is going to say, what's the industry that I'm going into? What is the market for the products and services that I want to sell? What's the market research that supports that? What's the demographic data that supports that? How am I going to market to that consumer? What are my financials going to look like? How am I going to hire people? Where am I going to hire them? How am I going to train them? A good business plan is going to look at every aspect of your business and give you the opportunity to make sure that you have a plan for all of those things that you're going to need to be able to do to run your business well. Again, SBDC website, you can find templates for a business plan. SBDC counselors are tremendous help in putting one together. Too often, I see people build a business plan for the bank, and the bank is going to expect one. Build the business plan for you, and the byproduct will be it'll be ready for the bank when you're prepared to go to them. A good business plan is going to make sure that you've crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's. So I hope that was helpful for everyone. I hope I was so good at this presentation that you didn't have any more questions than you asked. If you would like to talk to me, there is all my contact information. That QR code will lead you to a site in which I've provided some resources along the lines of what we just did today. And you are welcome to all of that. I promise, Diane, I think will attest to it. I will not try to sell you a franchise if you reach out to me. That's not why I'm offering to talk to you. Anything that I can help you with, I'm more than happy to do.